We bought the Taproot filly out of Tisn't She Beautiful and will be trained by Todd Pletcher. Extremely athletic, a lot like him. We're excited to see him on the track.
Beautiful filly. She's out of a graded stakes mare that ran early as a 2-year-old, so I like that quite a bit out of her. This filly looks like she's going to be super early and precocious. Very good muscled filly, just a lot to like about her.
Taproot, standing at Gainesway.
Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look back at the Grade 1 $1 million Florida Derby in this edition of Kentucky Derby Prep Recap, presented by Gainesway. We break from the gate, and White Abarrio, the number 7, has emerged as the leading 3-year-old in South Florida after this victory, Mike. They break from the gate. Classic Causeway, who won the Sam F. Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby. He was taking a little bit of step up in class here. He broke sharply as expected. He went right to the front.
Yeah, he's got good speed, that horse. We'll talk about him, I think, maybe a little more later, Dan. He just, for whatever reason, doesn't show up at all in here and runs a very disappointing race, almost as if something went wrong with this horse, but I guess we'll find out more down the road. In typical, Gulfstream Park fashion, Dan, I guess they're going an okay clip here. The horses that are at the front portion of your screen right now, they're going to finish 1, 2, 3, and 4, save Classic Causeway, and nobody does any closing.
Simplification, the favorite in this race, is sitting just off the early leader. He, of course, won the Fountain of Youth in his prior start. He is in a very good position, Mike. He's going to take over when Classic Causeway gives it up and just doesn't have the same pop as the top 2 in the stretch, but he ran his usual solid race.
Yeah, he runs well again in here. They put him right up on the pace this time, which they hadn't done in his 2 prior starts where he ran really well. He's under serious pressure here from Papa Cap. They're going to sort of contested around the second turn, but here comes White Abarrio. Charget's following him. And Simplification, he stays on pretty well here, Dan, but he's no match.
White Abarrio is looming outside. Right behind him is Charget, the son of Gainesway's Tappet, who didn't break very well from the gate. First time against winners, first time going long. Didn't have the push-button acceleration as White Abarrio, but he is still running on despite being a little bit green in the stretch.
Yeah, he's still a little green. He was hard ridden for a while in here. He got bumped at the start. I think that's why he was, maybe a little bit further back for a minute there. He's just green. He's drifting in here while White Abarrio drifts out. He jumps to his wrong lead, but he stays the entire way. It feels like a horse who's only going to get better with racing, Dan, probably with more distance too. I thought all in all, really nice performance for Charget off of his maiden win, and White Abarrio just ran well again. What can you say about him, Dan? He's shown up every time so far.
He's shown up every time, only 1 loss from 5 lifetime starts. The defeat, of course, coming in that live edition of the Kentucky Jockey Club back in November, where he ran 3rd behind Smile Happy and Classic Causeway. 2 for 2 at Gulfstream. He's been masterfully handled by Saffie Joseph. He, of course, beat Simplification in the Holy Bull, skipped the Fountain of Youth. They wanted a fresh horse in the Florida Derby. They got it. He's a very likable horse, Mike. He handles the 1 1/8. He has good tactical speed. He has a nice acceleration, and this horse is going to still be a price on Kentucky Derby Day.
It seems like he probably will. His figures are fine, but they don't certainly stand out in this crop, Dan. And, listen, we're talking about a race here where personally I just sort of had a pretty difficult time evaluating it. Nobody really did anything that special in here. I thought the 1-2 finishers got really good trips within range of the pace. I thought the pace was solid early, Dan. They weren't flying. It certainly didn't fall apart at all in this race. And they just came home super slow in here. The final 1/4 of a mile and the final 1/8 of a mile too. The last 3/8 really, really slow.
I agree with you that Charget probably got a lot out of this race, and it will really benefit his development going forward. He didn't break great. He was in behind horses, taking some dirt on the backstretch, hard ridden on the turn. He was still trying despite being green. He has points, obviously, to get into the Kentucky Derby, despite being eligible for a non-winners of 2 life. He's going to take some attention because of his connections. He's trained by Todd Pletcher. He has a beautiful pedigree. Is the Kentucky Derby just simply too much too soon for a horse like this?
I mean, it probably is. It's just not the way the game is played anymore, Dan. So these horses, they just tend to go in the Derby regardless. I feel like he would probably benefit from skipping it and maybe, trying to get a couple of different races under his belt before they took on the big boys again somewhere down the line. If he goes in the Derby, I don't think he's impossible. I just don't know, how interested I would be for a horse who's probably going to take his share of money in that race. I do think he has a good amount of talent, though.
Really nothing wrong with Simplification's performance. He pressed Classic Causeway. He took care of Classic Causeway. He took on Papa Cap's challenge. He took care of Papa Cap. He was just no match for the top two. This race was at 1 mile and an eighth. He's going to have to go a little bit longer in the Derby. He shows up every time. I do wonder, though, if he has hit his peak.
I wonder that too. He's a pretty nice horse, obviously. I also sort of respect the fact, Dan, that he's shown that he can do it a couple of different ways. He was on the pace here, but he's shown that they don't have to ride him that way. So I guess they'll press on to the Derby, and that's a race where obviously the paces don't seem to be that fast in that race anymore. So he can keep close, but if they do for some reason go fast, he's shown that he can sit a little bit and still run.
This was a step in the right direction for Papa Cap, the runner-up in last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He sat a very good trip, I thought, pushing the pace 3 wide. He seemed to be traveling sweetly on the turn, and he just couldn't step with the top 3. Again, like with Simplification, I do wonder if he's hit his peak, and this is the best he can do right now because he'll have to improve to win a race like the Derby.
Yeah, agreed, Dan. I mean, he is what he is at this point. Multiple Grade 1, placed as a younger horse, as a 2-year-old. I don't know what happened in his Risen Star leading into this race where he was just terrible, but otherwise he's just been very consistent. He's another horse who just tends to get really good trips in his races, and that can go a long way sometimes. He just feels like he's a cut below, the really top horses of his crop.
And as good as Classic Causeway looked at Tampa Bay, and he looked very good winning both the Sam F. Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby, albeit against weaker horses, that's how bad he was in this race. And you have to think something happened, Mike. He made the lead. He showed his good speed as we expected. There was just no response at the half-mile pole, and I would have to think something went awry, or at least I felt something might have gone awry.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it too. I mean, listen, it's certainly possible that he was found out in here. He took on some better horses, took some pressure, and just, ran a terrible race. But when you watch the replay, I mean, there was really never a point where Irad was asking this horse. He got taken on the backstretch, and he didn't put up any fight at all. And Irad didn't ask him to put up any fight. He just let this horse back through the field. To me, it looked like maybe something was amiss. I guess we'll find out more as time goes on.
Let's say he gets a clean bill of health, and let's say they decide we've got plenty of points. We're going to run in the Kentucky Derby off this race as the final prep. Can you give him serious consideration, or can you just draw a line through this race and say something happened, it wasn't his day, and his prior form is all good?
Yeah, I don't know if I would give him serious consideration, but I wouldn't, certainly be adverse to them taking the shot, assuming all is well with this horse, and this just happened to be an aberration, and they say they're going in the Derby. I'd be all for that. This is a fast horse. I wouldn't mind seeing him go to Kentucky and just go, put on a down the road speed show in the Derby and see what happens.
Let's take a closer look at White Abarrio. This is a son of Race Day, which makes him a grandson of Gainesway's legendary stallion Tappet. He has won 4 of 5 lifetime starts. He earned a 96 Beyer speed figure with his victory in the Florida Derby, coming on the heels of a 97 in the Holy Bull. He has handled every test from a distance standpoint they've thrown at him, Mike. He's now won at distances ranging from 6.5 to 1 mile and an eighth. And again, you can't knock what this horse has done thus far. He's run in every one of his races, and because he doesn't have that big triple-digit buyer, the likes of an Epicenter or a Messier right now, or maybe what Forbidden Kingdom could be, again, I do think he's the kind of horse that gets lost in the shuffle in the wagering on the first Saturday in May.
I think that's probably right. We'll see how that all shakes out. Listen, he's impossible to knock at this point. I don't. He hasn't run that one race really, Dan, that sort of caught my attention, but I'm certainly not here to knock him. He shows up and he runs every time. He's got great tactical speed, even a little bit further off the pace this time than he had been in his prior 2 wins. So I guess that's another positive for him. He's a really nice horse. He probably has to improve again when they get down to Churchill Downs.
White Abarrio was the second choice in the Florida Derby. He went off at 5-2 odds, and as a payout, he returned $7.80 to win. Charge It for Todd Pletcher, first time against winners, was second. He returned $5 to play. Simplification was third. 7-6-3 the triple. Papa Cap fourth. O Captain fifth. Mike, did you see any one of the also-rans that we didn't discuss that caught your eye? I just didn't.
No, I didn't really see, anybody do anything. Again, it was just another one of those typical Gulfstream races, where if you weren't in range early, you were not getting involved late. Nobody made up any ground in here.
White Barrio wins the Florida Derby for Sappy Joseph, and it's on to Kentucky.